I never thought I would say this sentence, but I really liked Jesus as a husband. Hi, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you about the books I read for the month of July. So in July, I kind of had a little bit of a reading slump. I only read 8 books, and only 2 of them were either 4-star or 5-star, so a lot of mediocrity this month. So my least favorite book was called The Red Queen. This one was just, I gave it 2 stars. It was okay. I didn't find it terribly offensive. It's definitely, you can tell it's from that time a few years ago where everyone was kind of trying to cash in on the dystopian Hunger Games. So in this book, I believe it's supposed to take place in the future, and there's basically these 2 classes of humans or humanoids. The Reds, who are just normal, average people like you and I with red blood, and then there's the Silvers, which I guess is supposed to be kind of like the next evolution, and they are an elite class, and they all have some type of power, basically like the X-Men, and also their blood is silver. The main character is a Red. Without giving anything away, she kind of falls in with royalty, because if there's one thing that books like this have taught me, it is that in the future dystopian society, there's going to be a monarchy and ample occasion for ball gowns. Which brings me to my next set of books. I read The Heir and The Crown from the Selection series. If you're not familiar with the Selection series, I read the first 3 a few years back, and basically it's about this future dystopian society where the monarchy of the country chooses his wife via The Bachelor. That's literally exactly what it is. Everybody is numbered, like the royals are 1s, and then like the high upper class is 2s and 3s all the way down to like 8s. In the first series, America is a 5, which is scandalous, who is kind of chosen in the pool of contestants on The Bachelor, basically, who are going to meet the Bachelor Prince to try and get him to marry them. And that's the first series. The second series is a couple years in the future. Not to spoil the first trilogy, but like the covers pretty much exactly spoil it. It goes exactly as you expect it to. And in the future, it is their daughter who is going to be queen, and she is doing The Bachelorette. These books are not good. They're not great. They're terrible, actually. But there is something about them that is just very enjoyable to read. I liked the first trilogy better because it had more of a love triangle that I was semi-invested in for the first book anyway. I just thought the voice of the main character, America, in the first 3 books was better than the voice of her daughter. What's her name? Oh, it's a weird, it's not actually a name, it's Evelyn. Evelyn? It's not a real name, as far as I know. So I preferred America's voice to Evelyn's, so that made the first series a little better. However, the fun part of the second series, I feel like they do a decent job of hiding for a while who Evelyn is going to choose. There's a whole group of guys, and you really don't know who she's going to end up with. They do the red herrings better than I would expect, better than most. The weird thing about this was that you can count and figure out that America and Maxon, her parents, from the first series, they're I think like 18 and 20, something like that, and it gives you dates. So you know that her parents are only in either their late 30s or early 40s, depending on how old they actually were in the selection. There's all this talk of how old they are, how her father's gonna have to retire. I don't want to spoil it, but her mother literally has a heart attack at like what must be 38, 39, something like that. Like, it is talked about like her parents are these ancient, decrepit, about to turn to dust at any second, so she's gonna have to be queen. But literally, they're like 40. But in general, they were fun to read, and I had an enjoyable time, but they're not good books, so I still give them 2 stars. All right, for the bottom of my 3-star reads, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. And this one betrayed me. It started off so strong. Like, I really thought this was gonna be like a 5-star best book of the month from the beginning, and then it just kind of like tanked in the middle. So this is kind of a classic romance novel. The main character is a writer who has found out something disturbing about her father, so she's going through like a tough time, and she's kind of really questioning the whole happily ever after model of life that she had previously had, and all of her previous novels really reflected this like happy-go-lucky, happily ever after attitude that she had always lived by. So she goes off and is living in this cabin, and she happens to be right next door to her old college rival, who is also an author and is kind of like more surly and dark and writes these darker, more serious books. So they decide to get into this competition. He's going to try and write a fluffy romance novel, and she's going to write a deep, serious novel, and whoever sells their book first wins the competition. And they have a lot of banter back and forth, and they disliked each other in college for absolutely no other reason other than plot. But I was into it. I was into the voice of the book. I was into this whole, like, you know, this whole little setup. I thought it sounded fun. I was reasonably invested in her, like, whole family drama. Oh, I forgot to mention, her name's January. That's just her name. Her name's January. It's fine. It becomes obvious that January and Gus, her rival slash neighbor, are gonna hook up, which is fine. Like, that's exactly what I'm expecting. And they started off kind of just like physical, like it's progressing the way I would expect this type of relationship to start with people this age in this situation. And then it just takes this turn where she becomes this giant whiny crying baby about everything. Like, you know, like he doesn't call her for a day, or I think he disappeared for a couple days without telling her he was going anywhere. And she just goes off the fucking deep end, like sobbing in a bar parking lot, and I just can't stand these romance novels where they have these grown women acting like dramatic 15-year-olds, and I'm just not here for it. She was supposed to be, I think, 28, something like that. Just no. Although one thing I did like about it was it does take place in Michigan, and the main characters went to the University of Michigan, which is where I went to college. So that part was fun, but just no. No for grown women acting like ridiculous children that can't just text the guy and be like, hey, where'd you go? And instead builds up this elaborate fantasy about how he never liked her, and he obviously feels nothing for her, and she made him just no. My next 3-star read was called Fablehaven. My cousin Jordan requested that I read this one and talk about it on the channel. It was okay. It's a middle grade fantasy. I did actually appreciate, I thought it was gonna be like an actual like Middle Ages type fantasy, and it's not. It's present day, which I liked. And it's about these two kids who go to stay with their grandfather, and they found out their grandfather is basically keeping all these magical creatures on his property, and he's kind of like their caretaker. And it was a good enough setup, but too much of the plot of this book was motivated by one of the main characters, Seth, just being an absolute fucking moron. And in his defense, he is 11 years old. But it was just too much. Like, that was the only thing driving the plot forward for the first 60% of the book, was just him being a moron and not listening to their grandfather and breaking all these rules and causing all this trouble. And I know 11-year-old boys are like that, but there's a part in the book where their grandfather has come clean to them about all the magical creatures and everything going on, and basically has told them, this is dangerous. You could die. You could cause all of us to die. And he still misbehaves and almost causes everyone to die. It's not that I minded having a frustrating character like that, because it's not that I think it's not believable for a young boy to act that way, but just too much of the plot was dependent on it, which then just kind of made me not as invested in the story, because I'm like, well, they fucking deserve this because they trusted that kid and didn't drug him with NyQuil like they should have, after he had already shown time and time again how untrustworthy he was, and now they kind of deserve what they get. That was a frustrating part for me. I do think it was generally well written. I didn't mind it. It just, like, the whole fantasy middle grade isn't really my thing, but it wasn't bad. Did you hear that, Jordan? It was not bad. And then I also read The Wives, which I know a lot of people did not like, but I did not mind. This is about a woman who has a husband who is in a polygamous marriage. He's married to other women, and it's this weird situation where they've never actually met each other, so she doesn't actually know the other women. She just knows they exist and that he goes to see them. And she starts snooping, and she starts uncovering things about the other wives, and everything kind of starts going downhill from there. This one did unexpected things, in my opinion. This one kind of fucked with me a little bit. Like, it was kind of all over the place, and the ending was absolutely batshit crazy, but I kind of liked that. I respected where it went and what it did. And then my 4-star read was The Shadows. This is about a man who is returning to his childhood town because his mother is dying. And when he was a teenager, some of his friends killed another one of his friends. And coincidentally, while he's back in town, a similar copycat murder has taken place nearby. And they're trying to figure out if the two may be connected, because one of his murdering friends, disappeared after the original murder. And they have no idea if he's back, if he's involved, if there's any true connection, or if this is just this new set of murders is truly just a copycat case. I enjoyed this one. It made use of another common trope that I've seen, but I think this did it better than I have seen it done before. So it was like a trope I've seen many times, but I thought this one, it was better executed and made more sense in this story. Overall, I thought it was solid. It talks a lot about lucid dreaming. That's a bit of a rabbit hole you can go down if you start Googling about lucid dreaming and trying to do it yourself. So it's kind of fun for that. It's spooky. The shadows that it talks about is actually this like big spooky woods that's kind of behind everybody's houses in this like very poor town. And it is appropriately spooky. Everything ties together appropriately well at the end. I did think there was like one thing that kind of came out of nowhere, but it was okay. I was okay with it. Made it out that there was two narrators. The main guy that's coming back to the town to spend time with his mother as she's dying, and then a detective that is investigating the copycat murder cases. But we just did not spend much time with the detective. She was truly just a device to be able to talk about these copycat cases from that perspective. And the author tried to develop her character a little. Like, she had some character, but we just didn't spend enough time with her for her to truly feel like the main character that the novel was trying to make her be. So that was probably my main issue with it. Otherwise, it was solid, and I enjoyed the mystery. And then, my favorite book this month, to my incredible surprise, is The Book of Longings. This is a book about the fictional possible wife of Jesus. If that does not sound to you like it's going to be a novel about a true feminist icon, you would be wrong. I really kind of expected this book to be Jesus's life as told through his wife, but it was not. It was 100% her story and her life, and she just also happened to be married to this guy named Jesus. And it does make some of the romance scenes a little like uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable, just kind of weird to read where it's literally Jesus. Like, there's nothing explicitly sexual or anything, but she's really truly in love with him, and it's Jesus. I don't know. But surprisingly, this was 100% her story, and she had all of her own motivations and her own voice and her own goals, and she fought for them despite her love for her husband. And Jesus in this story is told from the perspective of Jesus as a man. You don't actually see any miracles or any magic from Jesus. However, it's told in such a way that like all those things could be happening. It's just our main narrator, Anna, isn't there for them. So the story could fit either way, with like Jesus as a man who was a prophet and all of that, or Jesus as Son of God, but just kind of like Son of God off camera. I never thought I would say this sentence, but I really liked Jesus as a husband. He supported Anna through everything. She had her own very specific set of goals, and he had his own very specific set of goals, and they were together, and they were a pair, but they were each both individually pursuing their own set of goals. And I would not expect this from a novel that's supposed to be taking place in, the year 0 or whatever. But that's what it was. And my other favorite thing about this book, not to spoil anything, it is a bit of a spoiler, is Anna does not want children. It is extremely unusual to see that. I was trying to make a list of books I've read where the main female character does not want children and does not end up changing her mind and having children. I only know of literally 2 others, and the other 2 were both written by Elizabeth Gilbert. But anyway, in this book, Anna does not want children because she believes they will interfere with her other goals in life, which is basically to become a writer, which is kind of a weird thing for someone in that time period, but that's what she wants. And if she has a child, or children, she knows it'll never happen. And Jesus is supportive of this. He's aware of this goal. He's aware of the measures she's taking to avoid pregnancy, and he's supportive. And I would have never guessed that a book about Jesus's wife would go this way, but it did. In addition to me just really liking the character and the romance and the direction the plot went, I also loved the way this was written. It was just beautiful. I really enjoyed it. I could see some people might think it's a little too slow or a little dry, but I loved the writing. I loved everything about this. It was my favorite this month by far. Honestly, one of my favorites I've read in a while. I absolutely love this book, and I would highly recommend it if that sounds like something you would also be interested in. Alright, so thanks for watching my video. Thank you for everyone that's been watching and subscribing. I really appreciate all the support from you guys. Please leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read these books, what you thought about them, what you think about my opinions of them, what should I read next. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already so you can see more of my videos. Thanks, bye.